afternoon, Quasar Markets Live. I am so happy to have the man himself on the floor of the CBOE itself. Scott Bauer, how are you doing today?
I'm all right. How are you, man? It's a little bit loud. It's a little bit busy down here today. Maybe not for the right reasons, but we're all good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. I'm doing well. You know, one thing
Awesome.
I always remember on days like today when I've worked with you at Prosper was you would always have Scott's wish list on days like
You got
today.
that right.
You know, and what I mean by that, just so our viewers know, you know, you could have the best technical analysis in the world. You don't know when Iran's going to fire a ballistic missile at Israel or 300 of them. So in those
Ain't
cases,
that the truth?
you know what we have found over the years is it's a time of opportunity, unfortunately, when things like this hit. And what you
Sure.
see is people who keep money on the sidelines, powder always open, all the things you always taught us. Today's the day you go wish list shopping. So are you wish list shopping today?
I am wish list shopping, and there's really a couple, and then there's one on the short side too. But before I go into that, what I kind of want to tell everybody, because I've been hearing from a lot of my clients so far. Oh my God, what happens? If this war gets worse, what happens if it breaks out? This, that, and the other. Well, first, we all hope and pray to God that it doesn't get worse, right? I mean, that would be the worst thing. But in terms historically, Howard, of how the market reacts, it's pretty indifferent, to be quite honest. We do see a little bit of a drawdown, but it typically doesn't take long for that drawdown to work its way back. If you remember back to, I'll give you just a couple examples here. The worst one in where it took forever to come back. That was way back in 1973. I'm not sure if any of us remember that. I was only 6 years old at the time, but the Yom Kippur War in
Right.
Israel. And the reason that one was so bad, and our markets went down 40%, and it took an entire year to make. Actually, it took more than that. It took almost 5 years to make that back. And the reason that one was so bad, because of the oil
Right.
um, prospects, right? Back in 73, the US wasn't, we weren't even on the radar for producing oil, quite frankly. And so the effects that invasion and the unrest in the Middle East had markets took our markets down dramatically, and it took the economy down dramatically, and it took a long time to make that back. Now,
Right.
if we go back just a couple years, Ukraine, Russia, took a few days, market to bottom, and it made it back in a few days. 2020 was when Soleimani got taken out and there was some unrest. Same thing. And if you go back historically, the markets do pretty well. Now, if we do see a further pullback here, there's two things specifically I'm looking at. One are the short or the small caps. Whether you look at the Russell or IWM, I like the IWM because it's like the SPY. It's easier to trade, smaller denomination, much more liquid. So the small caps here, they're still going to benefit from what is going on with interest rates and what is going on economically here. So I believe on a pullback, especially if you get a 2, 3, 4% pullback, if that happens, that's a really good opportunity. And when I look at IWM here, kind of not far away from where we are right now is the 50-day moving average. I think it's right around 215 or so. That would be my first entry, and I wouldn't
Okay.
take an entire position there. I would probably take a half position, because if things get really, really bad, the 200-day is down to 205.
Five. Yep.
So those are the two
Pivot
areas that
points you're
I'm
looking
looking
at.
at.
Okay.
Exactly in IWM. From a pure out equity play, you can look at and say, I want my Nvidia, I want my Apple, I want my Microsoft, whatever it is. I honestly think Costco, even though it is near all-time highs and it's off their all-time highs, but Costco, of all the retailers, when the what hits the fan, and even if things economically get worse here, and if that recession starts to hit, Costco is one of those stocks. I'm not going to say it's recession proof. Costco is one of those stocks that I think will benefit. And you know what? Coming off of their all-time highs, they are coming right down to major support at that 50-day moving average,
Yeah.
just right below where we are right now. You know, a percent or so below. So those are the two that are on my radar on the buy side that I'm just lurking. I'm waiting in the wings.
And I don't know if
You
you
know,
saw Costco announced that they, because, Costco is also well positioned right now,
they
unfortunately, because
they
of
brought in a ton. Yep.
yeah, because of the longshoremen,
The port strike.
they
Yep.
already got stuff in. They made it clear they're at all-time highs for inventories because Costco
Yep.
is one of those places they move stuff out in a day. But they've got, a few weeks to a month. They made it clear. So I love that column. Like you said, you can see that support level here at that 875
Yeah,
area,
I
pretty
and
strong, all the
that's a
way down to 8.
position would take pretty heavily.
Yeah, I love that
Yeah,
call. Not
that's
that I didn't like the other, and what I was going to say with IWM is I'm with you there because I had said, I do think interest rates. Steve and I have been talking about how that helps these smaller companies. They need to borrow money, and they're able to do it.
no doubt.
Getting a little pullback here is like a little Christmas present almost if you can get to those levels. Because
I
if
agree.
because just yesterday you would have been saying to me, I wish I could get it back at those levels. So, with those two, I couldn't agree more.
And now I'm going to give you one on the short side.
Okay.
Okay, if things continue to escalate and we see a further surge in oil prices, and I know they're up what 2-3% today, and it's nothing coming off the bottom where they were.
Right.
But if this thing rallies any further, if we see crude, if it gets up to the mid 70s or so, I want to short not only crude futures, I want to look at whichever of the refiners are out there, whether it's an Exxon or somewhere, and I want to get short at that point because honestly, this does not change the fundamental analysis that global demand is weakening and supply is increasing. Okay, that
Yeah.
does not change the narrative unless, God forbid, there's
Right.
the
Full,
the
full
un,
blown.
the
Right. Full
unthinkable.
blown.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
And
that's one on my
that's
radar.
yeah, that's a great point because the same thing is we were saying, oil had, I'm looking at the WTI here, but Brent,
Hmm.
same thing. They'd finally regained that 70 handle. They lost it again in the last couple of days because Saudis are going to start. They've made it clear they want to take back market share. They allowed the U.S. and even more so Russia's the one that's got to sell oil every day, right?
Oh, for
They got to
sure.
finance that war. They're not stopping for anything. So
Nope.
you got to love that idea too. Those are three solid moves that I think are great reaction plays based upon what happens, and that's why I love having you on is you always have a clearer head on days like today. Some of us that haven't been doing this as long weren't on the pits, you get such an influx of media, that it's tough to disconnect. We talked about that mindset back on an interview that I've put a few times on Quasar, and we have in that mindset coach now, Agnieszka, every day at noon or Monday and Wednesdays. And, she talks about it, how, not to overreact. We see it all the
That's
time
right.
in all the different Slack channels that you and I are in together and groups and chats. And people's tendency is, man, to just hit that
Oh, it's
figure. And it's, take a deep
it's
breath.
unbelievable.
Like you just said, in a couple of things, the thesis didn't change. Oil
Right.
was, you weren't going to buy oil this morning before all this sort of came out.
Exactly.
If it goes irrationally to the high side, take advantage of that, and play the other way. And then on the other side,
And
scared money makes easy money for the investor.
exactly. And I'll tell you one other thing. Is as much as people don't believe that there's still open outcry, that there's trading like what's happening right here in the S&P 500 pit, there is. Okay. And there is nothing like having a pulse of the market as standing right here. And I know, as you just mentioned, all these Slack channels, you're in there. It's people's emotions running wild without really having, the on the ground knowledge of what is happening. This is invaluable back here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that is, and for you guys to be able to walk downstairs any day and take a look at that is, and like you said, because you could see, even with everything going on, it's pretty calm there right now.
It is really calm. It has been
it isn't,
unbelievably
which
calm.
shows you that the retail selling It isn't the market makers, because that they're doing it behind you. You know, they're not buying. They're not, my one share of something isn't moving that
Here,
guy to the market.
take a look. You can
Yeah.
see here. Okay, I'm panning just, this is the S&P 500 options pit,
Yep.
and what's going on right now? Nothing. I mean, I don't want to say nothing, but it's you would think
Right.
that it would just be, absolutely crazy right now, and it's not. So, cooler heads prevail, and there's opportunity, and that's what we take advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. Scott, I know you have some stuff to do today. I am so happy you were able to jump on us here for a little market moment and show us what's going on at the CBOE and give us 3 great plays to look at here over the next couple of hours and days. Thank you so much for joining us, Scott. Have a fantastic
My pleasure,
day.
Howard. You too, buddy. Take